topic today is probably not for those of you walking around here, but it'll be recorded for a lot of my friends that watch my stuff, and so I'm kind of selfish that I'm talking to a group that I care about dearly. I have a message for evangelical Christians, especially Protestants. I'm a proud member of this group myself, raised Southern Baptist, and a member of one of the largest Baptist churches in the world. The first thing I want you to know, if you're in that group, is the leaders of the Coalition for Capital Homesteading believe in God, and the principles of capital homesteading and the just third way are shaped by the philosophy that truth comes from God, and we are called to seek that truth.
Yes, sir.
This movement is made up of people of all faiths, Jewish, Muslim, and yes, even Catholic.
My Lord.
There are a lot of Catholics involved. And I've learned much from them, and I enjoy working with them, but let me assure my people back home, I'm not hanging out at the bingo hall with them. No, seriously. I challenge Protestants to become as passionate about increasing widespread ownership as my Catholic friends are. I will explain why that is important to our economy in a minute. My Protestant friends do acknowledge there's something wrong with our economic system. Unfortunately, it wasn't created by God. Sometimes I think this system must have been created by Microsoft, because every now and then it needs to be rebooted. Now, we all agree something's wrong, but the typical Christian response to the problem is not to objectively analyze it and find the best solution. Most simply say, buy guns and gold and head for the hills and try to survive the collapse until Jesus comes back. But the Bible clearly says that no one knows the day and hour of his return. What if it's another 100 years? What if it's another 1,000 years? Don't we owe it to our children and our grandchildren and their children to fix our worst problems? Well, the first step is identifying the problem. To do so, I say we have to open our minds some. I'm a conservative, libertarian Republican. I've always listened to Limbaugh, Hannity, Fox News, and the like. But one day it dawned on me that these people profit on the conflict between left and right. The liberal shows do the same thing. If a workable compromise solution came along that fixes our biggest problems, the right and left talking heads would be out of a job.
Yeah.
I say that workable solution is here, and it's capital homesteading. But you won't hear them mention it until they absolutely have to. I have personally seen them go out of their way to avoid and suppress it. I have contacts. I've tried. I've talked to people. I've gotten memos back. It's amazing. They don't want to do anything but make money, unfortunately. So I'm trusting the media lists and thinking maybe everything bad is not the liberals' fault after all. In fact, I now say that corruption is our biggest problem, and it is inherent in our money system. When a central banker creates money that is not backed by something of value, they are stealing value from other holders of that money. Isn't that a violation of thou shalt not steal? See, the way we create money in this country is through loans that are created basically out of thin air with no backing. The central Fed loans to the regional Fed loans to the member banks loan to the commercial and finance credit card companies. Because each layer of banks are only required to have a small fraction of what they loan out in reserves, the banks and their favorite corporate and financial customers have huge amounts of easy money. Now, this multiplying aspect of fractional reserve lending really grows our money supply, which seems okay when times are good. But the glut of money is like a sugar high because it was based on frivolous consumer debt and speculation. So when there's a boom, something inevitably happens to burst the bubble. Then people can't pay their payments, and we have bankruptcies, foreclosures, write-downs, and business failures. And all those payments were going to go somewhere and be paid to something else, and now they're not. So what happens is we actually have money taken out of the system with a shrinking money supply. That is the bust cycle. We're working through one now. With capital homesteading, Money would be created when the Fed loans an equal allotment to all citizens annually, but you would be required to invest it for retirement in dividend-paying stocks. You would control it. You would spend the dividends during your lifetime as you wish. This would eventually replace the bankrupt Social Security Ponzi scheme. When you invest, the transaction would be done when businesses have proven they need the money for feasible, productive, economy-growing purposes. What this would do is reorient our money creation mechanism to always steadily, solidly grow the economy as it empowers all citizens without boom and bust, fractional, frivolous lending. You need to look at the long-term projections, because even when returns are calculated at conservative rates, the numbers will blow you away. There are other plans that more Christians, for some reason, seem to like. I start talking to them and they want to talk about the gold standard. Well, I say capital homesteading will be better than a gold or metal standard because it does not limit growth based on the availability of a commodity. The ultra-rich could corner the metal market. Then we're in a similar situation to what we have now. Private banks and financial players are cornering the free money fractional debt system right now, and the average citizen pays the interest, the consumer interest. They can't get business loans, and they pay the taxes to support the government part of the debt. But the central bankers and money system manipulators keep rolling in the profits, and if they have a bad year, we bail them out. It is exploitation, period. Amen. The one time Jesus showed righteous anger was when he turned over the tables of the money changers in the temple. These crafty men had cornered the market on the coin that was required to pay the temple tax. We need to be like Jesus and show righteous anger toward the politicians and bankers who have corrupted our money system, so that there's an elite few in the banking and financial sector who profit on the system at our expense. When I tell Christians about this, they usually only have one objection. They say that'll never happen. Or you're fantasizing about utopia. But you never accused the founders of this free market representative republic of utopianism when they tried something new. Another question. Can you stand here at this great monument for our 16th president and say that he should not have tried to think outside the box to find a way to empower average Americans with economic opportunity through ownership? Perhaps there were critics of his Homestead Act that said it will never happen. But it did. And we experienced our only peacetime full employment with unmatched GDP growth for years. The message of Jesus is to first love God and second, love your neighbor. Are we loving our neighbor when together we have enough strength in numbers to fix our corrupt system, but we're all complacent? Now, I agree with my fellow conservatives, there's nothing better than the free market and small government. But that's why I've joined this group. It's the only ones out here that are going to bring you smaller government, free market, with someone else on board with us. And I'll tell you who that is. The liberals. It's very simple. You've been saying you want smaller government, free market for generations, but all we get is less free and bigger government every year. Capital homesteading is the way to more free market competition and smaller government. We can persuade most pure liberals to work for these things if we just admit to one thing they've been saying, which is power tends to concentrate. We already know that government power concentrates. We sit there and listen to Rush Limbaugh talk about it every day. But so does money power. Money power concentrates. Think of how easy it is to build additional wealth after you already have some. We simply need to make it easier for average people to invest and profit. Wealth disparity is very important to the liberals, and for good reason. Things really are out of whack. I recently heard a statistic that the 6 Walmart heirs own more wealth than 40% of Americans combined. It's not hard to do that when no one has any savings, people. That's a very, very understandable statistic. Capital homesteading empowers all people with economic opportunity without taking anything from the rich. Christian conservatives, my friends, one of your heroes thought this way. Ronald Reagan knew that we do not have to limit our thinking to who gets what slice of the pie. We simply have to grow the size of the pie. Look it up on YouTube. He talks about this stuff. The Republicans now are not talking about this stuff. He even advocated industrial homesteading, now called Capital Homesteading. That is the kind of position that caused him to be the only Republican to unseat an incumbent Democrat president in the last century. Before I close, since I'm directing this at conservative Christians, let me just briefly mention the life issue. While this coalition doesn't address this point, let me just ask you to visualize a world where practically all people have wealth and incomes. Wouldn't there be fewer reasons to end a pregnancy?
Well,
so Christians, join me today at capitalhomestead.org. And my liberal friends, I love you. This was just for the ones at home. Thanks a lot.
okay.